I bought this truck from a buddy of mine, and I was really unhappy with the headlights in it because I'm used to pretty good quality lights. So basically, we're gonna go from that to that. Let's do it. So step one, you gotta get everything you need, all your materials and supplies. I've got new housings because they're easier to retrofit than the factory ones, and because the factory lenses were all screwed up anyway. These are made by DEPO auto lamp. They've got a butyl sealing on them, so they're really easy to get pulled apart with a heat gun. This is the rest of the stuff. So here's the shrouds to make it all look pretty when you're all said and done. These brackets, game changer. They're from Custom Brackets and Designs, I think they're called, CB&D. Makes it super easy to get the whole process done. These are some rings that just help the shrouds mount onto projector a lot easier. And then this is actually a 3D printed cap for the back of the headlight. That makes it a lot easier to kind of seal things up, because the fan on the back of the projector, you don't want to leave that out in the elements. So got to make sure it's sealed up. But anyway, let's get this housing. So there's your housing. The old trusty heat gun. Just gonna start working around the edges, and that butyl is going to just soften up, and you basically just pry the lens off the housing. It's easier if you use an oven, but my wife probably wouldn't like it if I was sticking this thing in the oven. I don't remember exactly what the temperature is and how long you're supposed to leave it in and use an oven, but you can Google that and figure it out. But I've done several sets this way. It's definitely not super easy, but it just takes a little bit longer, so no big deal. So after you've gone to town with the heat gun and have been prying your edges there, you're just going to really work your way around. You can see this part here, it's already separated a good bit. You literally just have to heat up towards the bottom now and just pull it apart. And as you go, you're going to get these little nasty looking strings here of butyl. Something I saw, I think it was Fly Ride. When he pulls them apart, he just sticks like a popsicle stick or whatever it was. I just use a screwdriver because I've got one sitting here next to me. But and that just helps with the cleanup later on down the road, because you don't want to get it all over the chrome on the inside of the housing. That will happen if you're not careful. So let's get back to it. Yep, see that right there? That's what you don't want. You're gonna have to clean that up, but we're getting there. And there you have it, one housing and one lens. What I like to do is, as soon as I take it off, just set it in the box that the housing came in, face down, and try to keep as much dust out of it as possible. Doesn't really matter because you're gonna clean it anyway, but that's that. So next thing to do is we have to get, there are 4 screws, 2 on the top, 1 here, 1 on the other side, 2 on the bottom. Get those out, and then the chrome bezel will pop off. Okay, there's the bezel. So like I said, being careful with that butyl. It is, I was trying to be careful, but I still got it all over the outside edges. But I'll be able to kind of pick most of it off of there anyway, so let's keep going. I'm assuming not all headlights are like this, but so the guy that made those 3D printed caps, I reached out to him to try to figure out how to get the buckets off of there, because I could not get them off and I want to break it. It's kind of hard to see with that little white thing in there. You have to use the adjuster right there to angle the headlights forward or down, I guess, so you can get to those, and the buckets kind of pop off. There's a little clip in there, so I'll see if I can get that. So I adjusted that all the way out. Now you can see a little bit better those little white things down. There's a little clip in each of those, and the one that we just adjusted, that actually just pops right out of there. This has got a thread on it, so you'll just adjust that out all the way to angle this thing forward, and then these pretty much pop off. Okay, so this is the orientation that this thing sits in there. When you pop it off, it comes off like that. Those little nub screw things is what holds that on, and those are the clips that you have to release. They are a pain, but it is very doable. So now we have to cut all the back half of that bowl off of there. So let's get to it. So we got to fit this into there. So basically, you can see it's not even remotely close. So basically all the way up to about here is going to get cut off. So let's see. So typically with retrofits, there's a couple different ways to do it. You've got the thread-on method, which is literally the projector housing has a threaded shaft on the back, and it would go through that hole. This one doesn't have that, but we also have to recess it farther. There's the nut and bolt method, which basically uses the same pattern as this bracket, but because we have that bracket, it makes it a lot easier because this just mounts to these adjustment points, basically. So we have to get that down flat enough to clear that. So the whole back of this bowl is going to get cut off, and then the projector is going to bolt onto that bracket and bolt onto there, and it takes a lot of the guesswork as far as getting the rotation and everything on the projector correct. So let's get started. I don't have it bolted on, but just to show you kind of where it's at so far, it's pretty close, but because we're going to have the projector mounted on here, we're going to have to go a little bit farther. The other slight adjustment we have to make is, so to these brackets, this is kind of a general bolt pattern bracket for a bunch of different projectors, but because this has a heat sink and stuff on the back of it like it does, we have to trim up that bolt hole right there. I'll show you. So this is what it looks like once you get your bracket trimmed up a little bit to get the projector in there. It's bolted on. This might not be the right way to do it, but this is the way I've done it in the past. I'm just using some bolts as spacers, and I only have 3 bolts. Bought some more the other day, bought the wrong size, and I just happen to have 3 left, so that's what I'm doing. And then here is the back of the bucket. It's all hacked to hell, but you can kind of see now, though, how that fits in there. And let me see if I can do this with one hand. So, there it is. So you got to have enough clearance on there to where this thing isn't going to be hitting the edges. But the good thing is that looks terrible, that chrome shroud is going to hide all that. So I'm going to bolt this back on, and then we'll move on to the next step. I know that I'm probably skipping steps as I go here, but so when you get the projector mounted onto that bracket back there, I have seen where people use, and it's what I use, is just JB weld, and it kind of locks the, you might be able to see it back there, locks the nut on the bolt. That way it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to back off. Right now we're just going to use the old hose reel from the air compressor. Just kind of dust everything off. You want to do this as you go along several times, and then we're going to pull the actual lens off. See, it's super dusty from using the Dremel right next to it. So we're going to take that off in a minute and dust it off and wipe it off, and then we'll keep on trucking. And magic. So again, you want to get back behind there, dust it off, clean it real good. And then that's what the actual inside of the projector looks like on the inside. There's a little cut-off shield. That's what drops down to give you your high beam. But yeah, so let's get to cleaning. All right, we're getting closer. So now there's the shroud-centric ring, I guess it's called. This is the shroud. It's an E46R, I think. So it's flat on one side, so that helps out a lot. We're gonna have to trim a good bit off of the top side. And basically you're just gonna trim it to fit in there around the projector and cover up all the bracketry and all that nonsense. And the easiest way to do that is with a belt sander. So this is my cheap old Harbor Freight belt sander. I've used it a ton, and basically you're just going to grind it down till you get a good flat spot. And we're also going to have to work some material from the back side to make it so it's not as deep. So get to working on that. All right, took a shortcut. So I actually used my Dremel just to get a pretty close idea, just because it was so far off before. But now you can get kind of a little bit of a better idea as far as what we're trying to accomplish there. So now I got to work that flat spot down. I know it's going to have to go a pretty good bit, because you can tell the difference between that and that. So let's get to it. Now, just as a point of reference, so we can remind ourselves how much we have to take off, you can see the difference between the two rings. There's a good bit of material taken off, mostly this back lip here, but yep, that's it. Okay, so that's what the Shroud will look like once you've got it trimmed up. So like I said, ugly. Pop that puppy in there. Oops. Kind of hides everything. Anyway, that's most of the way in there. So this thing needs to be adjusted a little bit, but yeah. So you basically, this ring goes in there, that gets JB welded, and then this gets JB welded to that. So once we get to the point where the Shroud is back on, everything's looking pretty good, lined up nice. You want to wipe down again. Use your nice dirty microfiber cloth, wipe it down, get your trim ring back, and we're going to put that back in place, and then we'll put the side markers back on, kind of snap everything back together, put the screws back in it, and give it another wipe down and blow off, and basically reassemble. And then we got to do a little bit of wiring on the back side. So here's a little trick for you. If you don't have an oven like me to bake them in, if you cut a little hole in the box that the headlight came in, and you put a little piece of cardboard in there as a diffuser, and just let your heat gun run for a little while, heat the box and melt the butyl a little bit. That way it's easier when you got to clamp it back together. So just let that run for a few minutes and let it soften all that stuff up, and we'll get back to it. So once you get it out of the box, you basically are going to, with some gloves on because it's going to be hot, get you some, well, you should really use clamps. I don't have clamps, but basically you're going to squeeze the lens back onto the housing. I got it most of the way back. Got to work on this corner a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You squeeze it back. The best thing to do is clamp it and let it sit and cool down all the way. And then you're done with reassembly anyway. But I got a little bit more work to do, just get this top corner sealed back up, and then we'll wire it. Okay, so now it's on to these. So like I said, this is the cap that's 3D printed by 818 Retrofits. It looks great. Fits great on the back of this housing here. I got to run the wires and stuff through it. And then there's a little grommet to run the wires through. This is just the grommet that goes on the bottom part of the housing there. So I will throw those on and wire it on up. So I'm kind of skipping steps here, but this is the back of the housing after we put the harness and the caps on. Now we just have to wire up these. So what we're going to do is cut this pigtail off here, or this plug. We're going to wire that straight to the low beam, and then this will get wired into the high beam, and it's just to activate the shield, to drop the shield when you hit the high beams. And it's done. That's pretty much it. So runs out, all taped up, looks pretty good. So let's go throw it on the truck. Just like that. Not going to give you a video on how to put a headlight in a Silverado, because I'm sure that's online somewhere, but that's pretty much it there. Let's turn them on. And there you go. I need to do some adjustments still, but there's that cut off. You'll like to see that flicker. And again, still daylight, but you can kind of see on the big truck there. But yep, that's it. Let's do the high beam. See if you can even see the high beam during the daytime. Yup, that's it. So just for a quick recap, they are DEPO housings, NHK Bi-LED projectors, E46R Shrouds. The brackets came from CB&D, And the caps came from 818 Retrofits, which really, aside from the housings, I got everything from 818 Retrofits. So they'll get you hooked up if you've got a Silverado. But anyway, that's it. See ya.